Hi, it's Sean, and you're listening to The 3-Month Vacation. I learned one of my biggest lessons about writing in a Chinese restaurant. It was our first trip to the US, and my sister-in-law suggested that we grab some takeaway from the local Chinese place. Nothing fancy, just a casual dinner. But when I entered the restaurant, something unexpected caught my attention. There, behind the counter, was this neatly arranged array of boxes, each one filled with chopped vegetables, mushrooms, sauces, spices, everything, prepped and ready to go. It wasn't chaos, it was calm. Everything had its place. Now, I know this kind of setup is common in Chinese restaurants across the world, but at that time, I had never seen anything like it. And that's when it hit me. The magic of cooking isn't in the cooking, it's in the preparation. But here's the twist. To me, it didn't look like preparation. It looked like unfinished work. Unfinished work? That's an odd way to look at all of those well-chopped ingredients. But it was this weird concept of unfinished work that got my attention. Today's podcast is about that idea, about how much of what we call creativity actually happens before we create anything. We're going to look at writing, but in a slightly different way. I'll walk you through some of the techniques that I've used over the last 25 years, and this has helped me to write consistently without running out of ideas, and for the most part, without ever having writer's block. Let's start with the first step, which is never to finish your writing. I didn't say procrastination, I just said leave it a bit unfinished. Let's say I start writing an article. So I'll start writing for a while, and then I've got 2/3 or even 4/5 of it done. And then I will take a break. I might go for a walk, grab a coffee, or even stop working for the day. And this makes no sense, does it? The logical move would be to finish the task and then do something else. However, that system of getting the task done ends the momentum. Once I'm done, which is fine, but it creates a problem for the next time I sit down to write. It means that I have to start from zero. If, on the other hand, I do most of the work and leave it unfinished, then I have the wind behind my back. I can keep going, and I don't have to start with a blank page. Leaving some things unfinished seems counterproductive. There's even a term for it. It's called the Zeigarnik effect. This suggests that people remember unfinished or uninterrupted tasks better than completed ones. This mental incompleteness keeps the task looping in your subconscious. It then often pushes you to return to it and solve it, sometimes with surprising clarity. So you get what I'm doing. I write 4/5 of the article and then I leave it, when in reality I could have finished the article, but I chose not to do so. And because my brain continues to chug away in the background, it also seems to come up with the next step. In my case, that could be the following article or the next chapter if I'm writing a book. Procrastination is when you avoid the entire task. My goal is to get going, otherwise my brain will drive me mad. I will be eating and thinking about the article I still have to write. That's procrastination. I'll be walking, talking, doing other stuff, and thinking about the article that I have to write. That is also procrastination. The thought of getting the article together to write something, that continues to bug me if I'm procrastinating. But this procrastination also drains my energy with a task that's not even begun. But by choosing to write most of the article and just have a little tiny bit that's working in the background, now that's not procrastination. In fact, it's helping me move ahead. I'd say don't finish what you're writing. Take a walk and maybe talk with someone about whatever you're writing. The benefits of putting the very last bit off definitely outweigh the benefits of finishing it all in one go. And that brings us to the end of the first part. And the second part is to listen or to read something in between your breaks in writing. You know how the purple car concept works, don't you? You've seen red, white, green, orange, and even a polka dot car, but not purple. By some happy coincidence, you see a purple car because you're looking for it. Suddenly, you've not seen that purple car, now you see it everywhere. Something similar happens when you're writing and you take a break. You may have already put in some cool case studies, maybe a few examples, and then you decide, okay, that's it, almost done, let me go and take a break. So you walk out in the street, you snap on your headphones, and then the first thing that comes out of the podcaster's mouth is a story that you wouldn't have dreamed of in 1,000 years. I was writing a book last year. It's called Suddenly Talented. You've heard of it. And I was looking for some kind of example that showed complete ineptitude. People often come to me when they see me drawing and they say, oh, I wish I could draw like you. I can't draw. I can't do a single straight line. Now, if you look around you, you will find enough examples that show you hundreds and possibly thousands of people who have achieved skills, who've not been able to draw, for example, and now draw exceedingly well. But these examples don't make the point, or at least it wasn't making the point in my book. So I went for a walk, I slipped on my headphones, and I listened to all sorts of podcasts. And this one was something that I have zero interest in. It was about Celebrity MasterChef. But I listened to it anyway. Remember what I set out to do? I wanted a good example of someone who was pretty hopeless at a skill. I slipped on my headphones and I got that example. And here's the excerpt from the book. What is skill after all? An answer appears on Celebrity MasterChef as we zoom in on the conversation between the judges and contestant Amar Lateef. Serving sea bass on a vermicelli rice noodle salad, he appears like any aspiring chef. The judges seem to approve of his dish. In your noodles, the ginger, garlic, onions, and coriander are fabulous with the fish, but so are the noodles also fabulous because there is this sweet teriyaki sauce running through it, says Judge Greg Wallace. Now, I think this is just great. The fish is cooked beautifully. The skin is crispy. The big pieces of green chili on the top are a little too big. However, the rest of it is just fantastic, chimes in the second judge. This sounds like everyday TV until you realize that the contestant, Amar Lateef, is blind. So I'll stop right there. The guy on Celebrity MasterChef isn't just hopeless at cooking, he's also blind. I couldn't believe my ears. Now, before you think that I'm putting down blind people, I'm not. My father ran a secretarial college, and the people who got 100% off their typing right every time were those with limited or no sight. I have great admiration for people who achieve their goals despite all of their hurdles. Let's get back to the point, however. The point was that I merely wanted an example of someone who considered themselves hopeless, and Amar Lateef was hopeless at cooking. But I got this individual that was not only terrible at cooking, but was also blind, had to learn how to cook with his mother over video chats, over FaceTime. And then he goes on to win Celebrity Chef. Tell me you can beat those odds and get a better example, because I know you can. You will find, as I have, that walking away and listening to someone else isn't a guaranteed jackpot. However, more often than not, you will find the odds are in your favor. Also, it's good to chat with someone about what you're writing. Author Michael Lewis has this neat little trick. He doesn't tell others that he's written the story. He just tells them the story and he waits for a reaction. This is what he had to say on masterclass.com. These are his own words.
Write the thing you're going to write as best you can. Read it aloud to yourself, edit it, get to the point where you feel it's kind of polished. It's a story of some sort. And then try it out at a dinner party. Don't tell people that you've written it or on a walk with people. Just start to tell a story as if it's just, a story you know. And make them listen to it and see if you can keep their attention. And I try out material like this all the time with a group of friends. They have no idea I'm working on subject X. There is a story inside of X. And I say, I just heard this story. And I start talking. And I can tell by their response if it's working or not, whether they're bored or interested. I mean, the problem with writing is that you don't see, only in very rare instances do you see someone reading your book and responding to your book. But playing it for an audience without them knowing that's what you're doing, all of a sudden you see stuff in the material. You see, and beyond where interest flags, you see, I could have told it better if I'd not given that away up front, kind of thing. A live audience is extremely helpful, especially when they don't know that's how you're using them. If they just think, Michael's just telling me a story. I don't have to be, there's no rule I have to pretend to be interested.
Let's summarize this part because it has a few points. The first point is simply to read something else in between or to listen to a podcast in between. You know that research is important. You're always looking for a story. You're looking for some examples that you want to put in your article. However, there's nothing stopping you from adding a story or example after you're almost done. If anything, you're more sure of what you're writing, and the example is likely to be both unusual as well as incredibly precise. So that's the first point. The second point is talking to someone about it. I'll talk to Renuka about the articles that I'm writing, but often it's just a discussion. She already knows that I'm going to turn everything into an article, but it's still a discussion. If you have someone, anyone, who you can present an idea to, then it automatically improves your writing, and it does so immediately. And this is the writing that you're doing when you're not at your desk. You're walking about or you're just at the cafe, but that's where the story, the article is starting to become a much better version of itself. So we finished 2 sections. We looked at the first tip, which is never to finish your writing. You get almost to the end, but don't finish. The second tip was that you have to make a trip. You have to encounter audio, video, or text, even another human being. And finally, we look at the third tip, which is outlines matter, but bulleted outlines matter more. When we started doing the storytelling course at Psychotactics many years ago, I noticed that clients were getting very frustrated. Storytelling isn't exactly easy, even if you were to boil it down to just 4 concepts. A client has to learn and then implement these concepts. On top of it, they have to make the story interesting and keep it down to a paragraph or 2. If you think that all of these steps sound like a lot of trouble, it's mostly because of the lack of outlining. More so because the outlines are not in bullet points. Well, I'm not against scraps of paper, Post-its, or even fancy apps on tablets. They're all fine. However, you'll find, to your amazement, that bullet points give your thoughts a sense of order. You can type out a bullet point in a matter of minutes, skipping merrily from one to the other. While you're typing out these points, you're not focused on editing your work. If you start to write articles in paragraph form, you're usually in deep trouble. You're almost always engaging with the backspace key. But when you do bulleted outlines, it's completely the opposite. You'd never hit the backspace key, almost never. You're almost flying forward. What's cool about it is that once you have the bullets, you can easily move them around as needed. If you call yourself a perfectionist, because almost everyone does, then you have the joy of being perfect in a fraction of the time. And not everybody is a fan of outlines. And sometimes you'll run into big name authors that will tell you, oh, I don't write anything from outlines. First of all, remember that you are not a big name author. So just because they do it, you shouldn't have to do it. Secondly, they've been at it for decades. If I've been cooking for decades, I don't have to look at a recipe book to create any of the dishes that I do for lunch or dinner. So that doesn't make me a better chef than somebody who is following a system, and that system is the outline. So don't get swayed by all of these celebrity writers, because A, you're not a celebrity writer, but you will be if you start to do bulleted outlines. Plus, professionals always outline. A movie isn't likely to be made without a storyboard. And even the restaurant chef, that 5-star, Michelin 5-star guy, he's still working to a plan, to some sort of recipe. Outlining matters, but bulleted outlines are absolutely essential. And that's because they give you speed and they give you flexibility to move things around. And with that, we have 3 core writing tips. Even one of them will make a world of a difference, but all 3 are pure magic. Let's go over them again, shall we? The first tip is never to finish your writing. Get to the end, almost the end, but don't finish your writing, because it sets you up for the next day. You show up, keep your page open, and continue writing just a little bit, and you get momentum. Plus, your brain is working in the background. The second tip is to listen to or read something in between the breaks. So you are going to take some breaks, and maybe you've reached the 4/5 stage. Go out, take a walk, listen to a podcast, read a book, do something, speak to somebody. And you will find that the examples and the research comes popping through the door like nobody's business. Plus, you get the chance to bounce your ideas, to tell a story as if you just heard it, and they react to it. So you can actually see the reactions. The final and most important, I would say, is speed. Speed is the most crucial thing of all. So bulleted outlines work. You don't want to write paragraphs. You want to write outlines, and you want to write bulleted outlines. And that gives you that momentum so that most of the initial preparation is done. It's like all of those vegetables and spices and sauces all ready to go. So what's the one thing that you can do today? Well, I think the one thing that you can do today is to write bulleted outlines. Because if you don't write bulleted outlines, you lose speed. And if you don't get started, then all of the rest of the stuff doesn't matter. I mean, you're not going to get through 4/5 of the article if you don't get started with the outlines. So, bulleted outlines, that's what I'd recommend. Now, just as a PS, the Michael Lewis story got added as I was writing this article. The Zeigarnik effect of not finishing something, that was something that I posted on the article writing forum, which is now in progress. And Cliff Spenger, one of the clients, one of the people doing the course, he added more detail to it. And I did write this article with at least 3 separate breaks. Plus, I have outlines and bullet points. I put them in Gmail because that works for me. But bullet points, you want to do that with your outlines. And now it's time to write. But actually, it's time to outline. I'll say bye for now, but let's find out what's happening in Psychotactics land. The cartooning course is back, and this time we're going to learn how to draw your character. If you can't draw a straight line, as we know, nobody can, not even the good artists. It's a real struggle to draw a straight line. But let's say you can't draw a straight line. That's been your excuse. Well, now you can go beyond your doodles and scribbles and squiggles, and you can create your own character. Yes, that's what we guarantee. In 12 weeks, you will be able to create your own character and be able to draw that character. That's a result. You can go and do a million courses and they'll give you information. They'll give you videos, they'll give you systems and whatever, but you don't get promised a result. And that's the difference between a psychotactics course and any other course that I know of in the world. We guarantee the result. I'm sure pilots have a result, though. That would be a nasty downside if they didn't have a result. So maybe psychotactics is not the only one, but it's pretty impressive. You will learn how to draw and draw really well, and you will have your character. So look out for that. And if you want to learn how all of this talent thing works, there is a book. It's called Suddenly Talented. It's on Amazon. You can buy it. You can have it shipped to your door. You can underline it. You can make notes, the way we used to do this in the last century. Well, you can do it on a Kindle, but still, it's more fun on paper. Some clients have bought it for their kids, as in not just 10-year-olds or 15-year-olds, but kids who are 25 and 30 years old. So if you've got kids, you might want to send it to them, to friends. One client bought it for his clients, 10 copies. So there you go. That's Suddenly Talented. It's on Amazon.com. And I'll say bye for now. Bye-bye.